G'day all, Warwick Baines, the subject convener again. This is just a short video to step you through a few key things to think about when preparing for your first case study assessment task, which is due on the 7th of April, not that far away. Now, although it's only worth 15%, it pays to put the effort in now. Not only is it good preparation for the exam, a good mark in this case study could be the difference between a pass and a fail at the end of the session. The important thing to remember is that you're up to date with your studies as per this study schedule. And if you've covered the first 2 weeks, then you've covered all of the content relevant to this assessment task. If you're not up to date, make sure you get up to date on topics 1, 2 and 3 as soon as possible. Remember that whilst this assessment task is based on the one case study at the one auditing firm, SPF, and the one client, that's FFA, the 3 questions deal with 3 different issues, each brought to you by a separate member of the auditing team. So when you're preparing your report, make sure that the 3 questions are addressed separately. Okay, let's have a look at each question. Before you get too excited, let me be clear that I'm not giving you model answers. I'm merely pointing out things for you to think about. Samantha Gabrielle is the audit senior that raises the corporate governance issues that are the focus of question 1. It's material that's covered in topic 2 and on pages 121 to 131 of the textbook. Make sure you're familiar with the ASX corporate governance principles in particular. Now, as per the marking criteria, HD responses must incorporate or synthesise an evaluation of the corporate governance principles that have been breached with recommendations that respond to those breaches. Question 2, as you can see, is a pretty standard ethical case study from topic 2, raised in this scenario by Steve Barker. Now, there are a few ethical decision models in the textbook, but the question clearly states that you are to use the American Accounting Association model to answer the question, so don't use any other model. One tip is to keep the section about the facts brief and to the point. You don't need to restate every sentence in the question. As the marking criteria makes clear, a high distinction response will be one that contains a detailed and considered thinking rather than just responses copied straight from the textbook and placed under the correct subheadings. To get an idea of how you to answer the question, look in the textbook on pages 100 to 101. That gives you some tips on what to consider under each of the headings. And have a go at some practice questions in the textbook that also you're required to use the AAA model. Questions 3.19 and 3.20 on pages 135 and 136 are good practice questions. Just one more thing to think about. The marking criteria expects correct referencing. For this question, there's not an expectation that you reference an ethical or auditing standard or even a piece of legislation under each subheading. It may only be relevant for one section, most commonly the major principles, rules and values section. Finally, to question 3, raised in the scenario by Kate Hammond. This legal liability question is focusing on the strength of any negligence case that might be brought against SPF. This includes potential liability to third parties. In terms of preparation, there are numerous cases in Chapter 2 that cover the same topic areas. When it comes to practicing similar questions from the textbook, question 2.26 on page 89 is a good one on negligence, and question 2.30 on page 90 covers third-party liability. As per the marking criteria, high distinction responses need to provide a comprehensive synthesis and critical evaluation of the common law and auditing standards. That means you need to integrate findings from the most relevant case law and auditing standards into your well-considered arguments, not simply copy and paste information on them from the text. And make sure that as per the marking criteria, that case law and the auditing standards are referenced correctly. Finally, a couple of points in relation to the whole assessment task. Firstly, note the expectations of professional communication in the marking criteria. And the final point I want to make is to watch your word count. The question clearly says the word limit is 2,000 words, so make sure you stick to it. The questions vary in length and weighting, so allocate your words accordingly. Okay, that's it for now. All the best.